What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Hope you guys are enjoying the Oscars rant video. I guess that's how I will phrase it. Kind of a ramble, kind of a rant, kind of all over the place. So hope you guys were enjoying that video. I've been gone for a while on this channel, and I've seen a couple of movies from this year. If you saw my last video, you will know that I'm not sure what to do with reviews in general moving forward. I mean, I do like doing reviews, but I also feel a little bit more comfortable just kind of giving you guys a first impressions, because most times my first impressions are usually my general impressions. So, they don't really change over time. I mean, years later probably, but if you gave me that week period, I probably feel the same as I did walking out of the theater. So, you know, so like for instance, this weekend I will be seeing The Batman. So I'm debating whether or not I should do a review or if I should do a first impressions video. So by this weekend, you'll see a video for The Batman of some sorts. I just haven't decided on which type of video I want to do. But in the meantime, I thought it'd be best to do a video where I discuss a couple of movies briefly that I saw last month. Because January there was a few movies I saw there and there. I actually saw some films at Sundance. Just to name them real quick, I won't talk about them, but I saw After Yang, I saw Resurrection, and I also saw a film called Blood. All three of them I enjoyed. I'll just leave it at that. After Yang being my favorite, and Blood being my least favorite, but only because all of them are really good, but it's the lesser of the good. Let's just put it that way. But if you guys wanted me to review those movies, I'd be happy to. But for now, we're gonna focus on February because I saw a couple of movies, old and new, and I wanted to just kind of give my my brief thoughts on them real quick, just so I can get a little caught up, and just to talk about some movies. And then after this video, I might do another video. I don't know if you guys would want it or not. You guys let me know. I'm curious to talk about in terms of the film side of things, not the actual situation that's going on, but I would like to discuss a lot of how the industry has been responding to the Russia-Ukraine war. I'm curious to do a video on that because I haven't seen anybody do a video on it. Everyone's been really, really quiet, and I don't know if you guys would be interested in seeing me talk about that subject. I know that YouTube has been kind of like removing channels who discuss that topic. So I'm not going to talk about the war itself, but I'm going to talk about the response that the film industry has made towards Russia, and what could that mean for film moving forward. So if you guys want me to do that video, let me know. Or if it's just not a safe topic to talk about right now on YouTube, meaning like if there's a chance that this channel can get removed if I post that video, please let me know. But yeah, you guys let me know, because I actually am curious to discuss that topic. I just want to make sure that it's appropriate, and also I don't get my channel removed if I post that video. So you guys let me know, and maybe I'll do that as my next video. Who knows? Just an interesting topic to talk about. So, moving on though, let's talk about the films that I saw in February. Again, they're old and new, and they're going to be brief impressions. So no big long videos. So believe me, I'm going to try to make this video under 20 minutes. We're not going to make it over 30 or so like the Oscars video. So don't worry. So without further ado, let's get into talking about the films that I saw in February. So the first movie that I saw in February was a film called The Fallout. And if you see me looking over here real quick, that's because I have my notes from each film that I watch. I actually have a Letterboxd account if anyone is curious to go see my reviews. It's called Crispy 101, right? Just want to make sure. Crispy 101. Yes, Crispy 101. If you guys want to check out my reviews there, you guys can. And it's just basically just little thoughts on how I feel about the movie. But The Fallout, that was the first film I saw in February, and there was a lot of it kind of came and went. Like it had its moment, and then nobody really talked about it afterwards. And it it's not bad, but I don't appreciate how digestive the movie is for the type of story this movie is and the type of subjects and the type of messages that this movie is dealing with. I would have expected to not be such an easy ride to take. So I really wish that the movie was more weightful and less melodramatic, because it really bathes in that melodrama quite a bit. And I feel like it didn't really do justice to a lot of the themes that they were wanting to address. And tonally speaking, I just feel like, again, I just don't like how I'm able to process it so easily. I wish there was it was more not disturbing per se, but a little more realistic in how the situation itself would feel, versus having a movie that is easier to navigate. I also feel like it needed to acknowledge, just personally, I feel like it should have addressed how certain choices and places, because at some points this character that we follow ends up doing certain things and going to certain places. I feel like the movie should have addressed how it's both absolutely vital, one thing that she does, the one thing that she does that also is undermined in the movie. The other thing, which is also very, very much destructive, and that's the thing that we focus on the most, how both those things, again, the vital piece and the destructive piece, how that impacts your healing process, particularly in the importance of therapy, and the consequences of getting into a relationship at such a raw time after tragedy has occurred. In my opinion, one of them creates opportunities to get better, while the other will eventually lead to toxicity. So I really wish that The Fallout had touched on some of those points, but it chooses to take a safer road to take. And for what it is, there's a good performance in there. The lead performance is solid, and I think that the structure itself, while it is very safe, is engaging to a degree. It's not a bad movie, but I feel that the approach to it, like the writing especially, can get a little bit annoying. It's engraved into the dialogue itself. It's very engraved into today's culture within my generation, with how they talk, the language that they speak, the type of slang. I'm not a fan of that kind of world. It's not really my thing. I respect it. It's just not my thing. So having that being having that being what we follow, it didn't really engage me. It just really annoyed me. Also, it's just written very stretched, and I feel like it needed more time to chew on things, and to really make itself more weightful, as I said at the beginning. So it's not a bad movie. I think it's okay, but I feel that it could have been a lot better if it represented other sides of the story versus narrowing its focus. So it's good it's good done with the best intentions, but I feel that it doesn't really fully flesh itself out. So, all right, next film that I saw was another new film, and that was Kimi, Steven Soderbergh's latest film, the last film that he did, which was No Sudden Move, which I really enjoyed. Kimi is the polar opposite for me. There's a lot of problems that I have with this movie. Similar to The Fallout, though, the strengths lie in the performance and eventually the structure. The narrative itself is engaging, because I say that because the beginning is a bit like how do you say it? Like you're kind of going back and forth with yourself a lot. Like there's times where you think it's interesting, and then there's a lot of times that it's kind of hypocritical, which I think is the best word to describe Kimi. It's a very hypocritical film, mainly in its characterization, which is I think the worst part of the movie, because the core aspects of who this character is, the character played by Zoe Kravitz, they're made very clear. But her actions and what she does throughout the film completely contradict those core elements. For one of them, I'm going to get into some spoilers, by the way. So if you haven't seen Kimi, just I'll wave my hands like this when the spoilers are done. But for now, spoiler time. One of the things that she doesn't like or one of the things that that we learn about her is that she doesn't want COVID. So she's she'll germaphobe. She, washes her hands repeatedly to the point where it's like kind of irritating her hands. She does not want to go outside at all. She feels more comfortable sitting in her own house. And she doesn't want to really interact with too many people. But yet she'll sit and talk to someone she doesn't know without a mask on. She'll have someone come inside her apartment, have sex with said someone, and leave her windows completely open all day long. So, that's the first point of a huge contradiction. The second one is that she's a victim of assault, and it clearly has not found like some kind of peace or ways of dealing with her emotions. Like she clearly has not gone to therapy or has made some attempt at self-care, and you would think that she would avoid any form of trigger, but yet she has sex with said someone whenever she wants to. So I'm not an expert on things, but I think that would be a huge step backwards towards your recovery. Like being a part of said activity is in no way recommended for her in any respect, especially when her emotions are clearly still raw. So. And it also, similar to the fallout, leads to a very toxic relationship with said person. So, the characterization is all strange. It's all very hypocritical. And spoilers are done, by the way. Beyond that, there's just an odd atmosphere this film has. Like it feels rather thin. Like the story really doesn't kick in until its third act, which is what I mean when I say that the story eventually becomes engaging, because the first two acts is a lot of setup. Like they're trying to set up a lot about this particular character, and then there's some kind of situation that's presented in the second act, and it just feels too late, because by that point your interest has already worn off, and the only thing that is really keeping you engaged is Zoe Kravitz and the story finding some stability within that third act. But beyond that, though, I think that Kimi it clearly needed to rethink a couple of things, mainly in its developments, and really needed things to happen way earlier, like way, way earlier. The story really doesn't kick in until I think the movie's like an hour and a half, so by the hour mark, I think, is probably when things really start to happen. So. Plus, when your whole story could be resolved by making a phone call to the police, and you decide to use that at the very end after going through all that nonsense, it really tells you how fragile the narrative that you really, really have. And it cements also to the point that Soderbergh should maybe take his time with his movies, versus just making a film every single year that he is very infamous for. So yeah. Definitely definitely has a lot of issues, and I wouldn't really recommend Kimi. So, all right, next film that I saw is we're going back in the day, 1957. Finally checked this film off my list, and that is 12 Angry Men. Finally watched this movie for the first time. I know for the longest time, right? I've been watching movies, or have at least been a fan of film for the past like 4 or 5 years, at some point I needed to watch 12 Angry Men, and now I finally did. And my goodness, is this film brilliant? Now, I am not saying that because everybody else says that. There are films that a lot of people love, which we'll actually get into in a moment, um, that I personally don't really love. So this is not one of those like where like, oh, it's the popular way of thinking. That's not the case for me when it comes to 12 Angry Men, because 12 Angry Men is exactly as everyone is saying it is. It is absolutely brilliant. It is a gorgeous study of the idea of judgment and how quick we are to point the finger and call it a day without thinking more thoroughly and personally, which is where Henry Fonda's character comes into play. Um, but I mean, the performances in general, just in bringing in Henry Fonda into the conversation, the performances all around. I have not seen, maybe I have to think about it real hard, but I have not seen a more perfect ensemble than I did with 12 Angry Men. All 12 of them are spectacular. It's not like, you get like a few of them there that are great and then a couple that are just kind of there to fill in the space. All of them are great. All 12 of these people are great, and all of them are thoroughly fleshed out. Because to me, the greatest strength of 12 Angry Men is its script, because it is so tightly organized, so thoughtfully plotted, and carefully and simultaneously examines both the situation and the characters themselves. So like when all these characters are debating, you get a great understanding of each person and where they are emotionally speaking, and also just quite literally their viewpoint on the situation. So it also helps that the performances are like top tier. Like no one here is uh, no one here is just speaking lines. Like everybody here is engaged, and thoroughly electrifying, in my opinion. And also, in my opinion, this is probably the best example of using a space you have I can think of, because it all takes place in one room, and you completely forget about that when you're watching this movie. It's only when the movie reaches its end do you realize that we just sat in one room for about an hour and a half, and it was enthralling, it was engaging, it was a masterpiece of work. Clearly a timeless masterpiece and a timeless classic. Through the stellar writing, the outstanding performances, and Sidney's direction is spotless here. So many great camera angles, and just the way that he utilizes the space in general is really something to behold. So I love 12 Angry Men. It is spectacular. If you've not seen it, please check it out. Definitely a movie that I would want to see again multiple times. It is quite a thing to see. So absolutely love 12 Angry Men. All right, now coming back to 2022, I have 3 more movies, and then that's pretty much all I saw in February. The fourth film that I saw was a film that came out this year, and that is The Sky Is Everywhere. This is a film that came out on Apple TV Plus, distributed by A24, and it's weird after watching this movie that it is distributed by A24, because for the library that A24 holds, it's strange to have this added to their category or to their catalog, because it's so childlike, and it's very much an outsider to what A24 does. Because A24 is known for doing like a lot of dramas, some sci-fi, and most notably horror films. So it's very strange to see a film like The Sky Is Everything a part of their catalog. And for something wanting to be so wondrous and colorful, this plays very thin and all too familiar to me, to the point where you feel like reading a summary of the book and then moving on, because it's also very obvious that it's based on a book, by its design and its visual sense. And I didn't even have to look that up. It was that obvious. I was watching the movie about 30 or 40 minutes in, and I immediately thought to myself, this has to be based on a book because of just the way it's represented, just the way the movie is moving. It very much felt like one of the. It seemed obvious to me that it was based off of a book of some kind. Um, and The thing that really killed The Sky Is Everything for me was the editing. I felt that it made it very inconsistent and awkward to sit through because it makes the story become very stale and very unengaging very early on too. It's not like it just after a good chunk of time has passed does the film start to wear. It happens very early on, and unfortunately it's like that for the entire runtime, forming almost like a taste of frustration almost. Because it's also, in terms of a story, incredibly formulaic. And it honestly became annoying to me because of how shockingly basic it is. It's a very, very basic story. More so because I really like the director's other work. This is directed by Josephine Decker, who directed Shirley. And I really enjoyed Shirley. I thought Shirley was very very, very, very good. Has its issues, but I thought it was a solid film. This is very much a departure from that film, and from that style, and from that real grip to meat and grit. Because what you're given here is, like I said, a strange, childish atmosphere that really doesn't suit what's being told, or is written with the same energy that Shirley has, or had. It's visually interesting, but it's also a story that really wants to be taken seriously, and it just can't under these circumstances. So it's also under doubtful execution and structure, and for me, that is the biggest problem with the movie that it unfortunately could never overcome. Like I said, similar to my other two films, it does have a decent lead performance in it and some interesting visuals, but it suffers like its main character does, finding a real path to walk on. So I really didn't like The Sky Is Everything. I thought it was really unengaging. I guess my favorite part of the movie, I guess, was Jason Segel. I liked seeing his best Owen Wilson impression, so I guess that was kind of neat to see. But I wish it was in a better film, that impression. So yeah, I was not really big on The Sky Is Everything, but yeah, probably skip on that one. All right, now let's get into my unpopular opinion. As I said with 12 Angry Men, there are films that people really love that I agree with, that are masterpieces and really are classics and deserve to be, to be hailed or to be acclaimed in that way. But there's always a film or two, and you guys have the same thing, a film or two that you just don't love as much as everyone else does. I found one of those movies this past weekend, I believe, and that movie was Reservoir Dogs. I know, a lot of you are probably thinking that I'm crazy, but let me explain. I like Tarantino as a filmmaker. As a matter of fact, Pulp Fiction is my favorite script I've ever read. I love Pulp Fiction. I think it's Tarantino's best film, and also I think, again, the screenplay is the best I've read. Of all film, Pulp Fiction is the best script I ever read. Love Pulp Fiction. Has so many quotable lines, and the characters are just so fun to watch. And just, I think it's just written superbly. Excellent screenplay. Reservoir Dogs is Tarantino's first feature film, so I can kind of give some. There could be some forgiveness given, as it is his first feature, and there are hints to what Tarantino would eventually become watching Reservoir Dogs. However, though, and this is the weird part, this is Tarantino at his most independent and his most restrained, which is really, really weird because Tarantino is a very expressive storyteller. So it's very strange to see Reservoir Dogs being, that. And strangely enough, that and the navigation of it, which makes it very tiresome, and I think a lack to a real charm. I think that Reservoir Dogs pales in comparison to what Tarantino would eventually create, because there's just something of a visceral and compelling charm that Tarantino films have, and this one is lacking that. Um, the shining point of it all is, again, the writing. I think, and personally, my point of view, I think Tarantino is a better writer than he is a filmmaker, because a lot of times when I watch his movies, I am really, really impressed by his writing. Not so much with his directing. I mean, at points, yeah, like I think Once Upon a Time is actually one of his better directed films. Um, but a lot of his other films, I think they are written more better than directed. Um, and the same goes for here for Reservoir Dogs. I think the dialogue and the characters themselves are engaging, um, and I think that because of the script, I think that there is some fair developments and distinctions given. But the problem for me with Reservoir Dogs is what I expected to like and generally love, and that is budgetary restraints. I think that Tarantino works at his best when he has more money to play with. Because without it, you have something here with Reservoir Dogs that is still enjoyable. I didn't hate Reservoir Dogs. I liked it, but it had the potential to be a lot more than it is. Um, it's a similar viewing that I had with Jackie Brown, which is I liked it, but I've seen Tarantino do better. And judging by the love that this movie has, I'm pretty sure I'm holding the unpopular opinion here. Um, but I feel like it was lacking that charm that I find in Tarantino movies. And I just think the navigation of this movie just makes it tiresome. And I just find myself not really caring like halfway through. Like halfway through, I just found myself getting a little bored. And um, and again, it was his first feature, so I can forgive him a little bit. But at the end of the day, though, I think that it is one of his lesser films, and I'm pretty sure I hold the unpopular opinion, but that's just what I think about Reservoir Dogs. I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. So, and finally, the last movie that I saw this month, or February, when I'm recording this, this is March 1st, is actually an older film. This was for school, but I really want to talk about it, and that is Nanook of the North. This film came out in the 20s, 1922, and it is a documentary, and it's a documentary that talks about the Eskimos and a family of Eskimos and how they their life living in the Arctic. So how they, how do they bear the cold? How do they not die? How do they get food? So that's what Nanook of the North explores here. And like all great documentaries do, Nanook of the North, in my opinion, is both very informative and highly investing. And I've seen very little from the silent era. Like, I've obviously seen things like from Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, and then a couple of other films there and there. But in terms of my limited viewings of the silent era, this is easily my favorite thing, or one of the best from the handful of pieces I've seen. It's easily the most gorgeous. Uh, uh, I'll go one step further. Yeah, I've seen a few documentaries in my time, not a whole lot. I've seen a few there and there, but not a whole lot. So I'm only basing on my limited viewings of documentaries. Of the limited viewings I've had, documentary viewings I've had, Nanook of the North is easily the most gorgeous gorgeous of them all, because the shots are so rich in detail and leave so much for you to taste. It's not just one note type shots, or like thematically speaking, they're just there for one singular purpose. Like, they really leave a lot for you to feel, and I really love that about the cinematography. I also think the editing of this piece is what really created an engrossing experience for me, because it isn't just stock. Because when you think about the silent era, you think about not necessarily stock music, because the music in the silent era is actually really good music. But it isn't necessarily like stock music playing over clips. there are moments where movement will match music beat. And for something released in 1922, that is actually really astonishing to me, because it gives the movie a more playful and expressive look to what is a really hard place and environment to live in. Um, but I must warn you also, there are scenes in this that show animal abuse and cruelty, particularly towards huskies. So if you are an animal person like I am, you're probably going to be a little bit upset to see such mistreatment towards animals. And just bear warning for anybody who does watch Nanook of the North, because there are some scenes and some suggestions to animal cruelty. So, other than that disclaimer, though, based solely on the experience that I had with it, I think it's a beautiful and intimate look at a family of Eskimos that really will absorb you and keep you hooked for the entire runtime. Even though it is clearly staged, because the lead Eskimo that we follow, he's not actually named Nanook. And also the way that we see certain sequences play out, it clearly is staged, and it actually is made clear by an actual disclaimer at the beginning of the film. So they're not trying to pass it off as a certain type of authenticity. It is authentic in that it is real Eskimos doing the stuff, but it is not actually filmed in the moment. This is stuff that's planned, and the movie addresses that up front before the movie actually starts. But beyond that little thing, though, the atmosphere that this thing inhabits makes everything feel all the more real. And more or less because of its cast, does this film really feel really authentic. So watch Nanook of the North. It's a beautiful film, one of the best documentaries that I've ever seen, and easily the most gorgeous looking documentary that I've ever seen. And again, that's based off my limited viewings of documentaries. Obviously, I plan to watch more in the future, but just from the handful I've seen, Nanook of the North easily takes the cake for my favorite documentary. So that is it. That is all the films that I have seen as of late. We've actually gone over 30 minutes. My apologies. But those are all the films that I saw, and those are all of my thoughts on said films. So that's it. That's it for this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. You guys let me know your thoughts on all these movies. If you guys have any particular opinions, I'm curious about your thoughts on on Reservoir Dogs. And I think that's going to be it. So my next video, like I said, if you guys want me to do that Russia video, you guys let me know. Again, if I'm going to get in trouble with YouTube, I probably won't do it. But you'll definitely be seeing my Batman reaction or review, whatever one I pick, come this weekend. So that's it for this video, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And in whatever video that will be, I'll catch you guys then. And let me know your thoughts on all the movies that I had mentioned, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on them. So thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.